Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yasodhanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yasodhanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yasodhanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Visakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpadarubhyasya Krupa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Jayapataka Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nivashesh Sunvadi Pachitadhishtani. Namo Vishnupadaya, excuse me, forgot Prabhupada's. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pasyatya Deshtarini. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, we are on Canto 6, text, Chapter 14, Text 18. Om Narayanam Namaskritya Naranjaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Vaishtiki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so please excuse me if I fumble or mumble. I'll try to do my best for the glory of Srila Prabhupada and the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, before we start, I have one question. Why are we reading the Srimad Bhagavatam? Why do we read the Srimad Bhagavatam? I need answers from the audience. Why? Okay, to attain the ultimate goal of life. Okay.
Because it's the ripened fruit of all the Vedic literatures.
Okay, so ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures. Okay. Purification. Okay.
That was mine.
And that's yours. And
Love for Krishna.
develop love for Krishna. Yeah, thank you very much.
And that's not surprised about the show. You just chanted the verse.
Yeah.
Mara says everything's in it. It has drama, fiction.
Yes, it has everything in it. It's entertainment. Very good entertainment. So as I was reading these verses, or as I was thinking about this now, I want you to keep in mind something as I read these verses. I'm going to be a couple of them because they don't have much purport. Just think about what theme do you see? Because I saw something, but I want to see what you see. Okay. So, Atmanam Prakrutishu Adha Nidhaya Shreya Apnuyat Rajnya Tatha Prakrutayo Naradeva Hitadhayaha. I'm sorry, Naradeva Ahitadhayaha. Naradeva Ahitadhayaha. The whole, now line by line, Prabhu? Okay. Atmanam Prakrutishvadha. Atmanam Prakrutishvadha. Atmanam Prakrutishvadha. Nidhaya Shreya Apnuyat. Nidhaya Shreya Apnuyat. Rajnyat Tadha Prakrutayo. Rajnyat Tadha Prakrutayo. Rajnya Tatha Prakrutayo. Naradeva Hitadhayaha. Naradeva Hitadhayaha. Naradeva Hitadhayaha. Is that it? Next.
Oh, you want us to chant now?
Yes, please.
Atmanam Prakritishvadha.
Atmanam Prakritishvadha.
Nidhaya Shreya Apnuyat.
Nidhaya Shreya Apnuyat.
Ragyatata Prakritayo.
Rajnya Prakita Akritayo.
Nadadeva Hitadayaha.
Nadeva Hitadhayaha.
Atmanam Prakritishvadha.
Atmanam Prakritishvadha.
Nidhaya Shreya Apnuyat.
Nidhaya Shreya Apnuyat.
Ragyatata Prakritayo.
Rajnya Tatha Prakritayo.
Naradeva Hitadayaha.
Naradeva Hitadhayaha. Atmanam Prakritishvadha. Nidhaya Shreya Apnuyat. Adha Tada Prakritayo. Naradeva Hitadaya. Atmanam Prakritishvadha. Apnuyat. Rajnya Prakrita Adyadeyo. Nadeva Hitadaya.
Atmanam Prakritishvadha.
Atmanam Prakritishvadha.
Nidhaya Shreya Apnuyat.
Nidhaya Shreya Apnuyat.
Ragyatata Prakritayo.
Rajna Pradha Prakritayo Naradeva Hitadayaha. Okay. Atmanam, himself. Prakritishu, under the 7 royal elements. Elements. Adha, directly. Nidhaya, placing. Shreyaha, ultimate happiness. Apnuyat, may obtain. Rajna, by the king. Tatha, so also. Prakrutayaha, the dependent royal elements. Naradeva, O king. Ahita adhayaha, offering wealth and other items. Translation. O king, O Lord of humanity, when a king directly depends upon his associates and follows their instructions, he is happy. Similarly, when his associates offer their gifts and activities to the king and follow his orders, they are also happy. Purport. The actual happiness of a king and his dependents is described in this verse. A king should not simply give orders to his dependents because he is supreme. Sometimes he must follow their instructions. Similarly, the dependents should depend on the king. This mutual dependence will make everyone happy. O king, are your wives, citizens, secretaries, and servants, and the merchants who sell spices and oil under your control? Are you also in full control of ministers, the inhabitants of your palace, your provincial governors, your sons, and your other dependents? Purport. The master or king and his subordinates should be interdependent. Through cooperation, both of them can be happy. If the king's mind, text 20, if the king's mind is fully controlled, all his family members and governmental officials are subordinate to him. His provincial governors present taxes on time, without resistance, and what to speak of lesser servants. Purport. Aṅgirā Ṛṣi asked the king whether his mind was also under control. This is most essential for happiness. Text 21. O King Citraketu, I can observe that your mind is not pleased. You seem not to have achieved your desired goal. Is this because of you yourself, or has it been caused by others? Your pale face reflects your deep anxiety. Text 22. Sukadeva Goswami said, O King Parikshit, although the great sage Aṅgirā knew everything, he inquired from the king in this way. Thus King Citraketu, desiring a son, bent low in great humility and spoke to the great sage as follows. Purport. Since the face is the index to the mind, a saintly person can study the condition of one's mind by seeing his face. When Aṅgirā Ṛṣi remarked about the king's discolored face, King Citraketu explained the cause of his anxiety as follows. Translation 23. King Citraketu said, O great Lord Aṅgirā, because of austerity, knowledge, and transcendental samadhi, you are freed from all the reactions of sinful life. Therefore, as a perfect yogi, you can understand everything external and internal regarding embodied conditioned souls like us. 24. O great sage, you are aware of everything, yet you are asking me why I am full of anxiety. Therefore, in response to your order, let me disclose the cause. Translation 25. As a person aggrieved by hunger and thirst is not pleased by the external gratification of flower garlands or sandalwood pulp, I am not pleased with my empire, opulence, or possessions, which are desirable even for great demigods, because I have no son. And last verse for today, text 26. Therefore, O great sage, please save me and my forefathers who are descending to the darkness of hell because I have no progeny. Kindly do something so that I may have a son to deliver us from hellish conditions. Purport. According to Vedic civilization, one gets married simply to have a son who is needed to offer oblations to his forefathers. King Citraketu responsibly desired to get a child so that he and his forefathers might be delivered from the darkest regions. He was concerned with how to get piṇḍa, oblations in the next life, not only for himself, but also for his forefathers. Therefore, he requested Aṅgirā Ṛṣi to favor him by doing something that could help him get a son. Mukam karoti vācālam pangum langayate girim yat kripātamaham vande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyam Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. So, tell me what, okay, well, you answer my question. So, the first question I asked was, why do we read the Srimad Bhagavatam? So, as I was, thinking about this, a couple things came to my mind. Reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, for me, three things. It's a warning, it's a promise, it's purification, and it's transformation. Why do I say it's a warning? Because how many stories have we read in the Srimad Bhagavatam? And maybe some of you can give me an idea where we've learned a lesson. What did we learn from the lesson of Ajamila? The power of the holy name. Yes. What was the warning? Did you see a warning in there? Ajamil. Be careful what you expose yourself to, right? He was a staunch Brahmin, very studied in knowledge, but because of something he saw, some illicit relation, he fell down. But then there's the promise. The warning was be careful what you put in, but the promise, but if you remember Narayan, if you remember the Lord, he will protect you. Each one of the stories in the Bhagavatam have those promises, has the warning, has the promise. And if you think about the Bhagavatam as a whole, when you start from the beginning, it talks about Krishna, but as the Supreme Lord. We see his greatness, creation, secondary creation, all the different things that we see in the Bhagavatam. What is expected to happen as we read these stories, they're not just stories to read and, oh, that was an interesting story. There needs to be a transformation of the heart. And these are Srila Prabhupada's ecstasies, right? Spiritual ecstasies. So if we attentively hear, attentively read, and attentively understand and try to decipher what the transformation is happening and the change that we can make, it becomes more powerful. So that being said, so the purification, why we transform our hearts. And if you see the progression of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it starts from his lotus feet, right, and goes to his face, but it actually starts with his greatness and comes to his sweetness. Now, in order for us to be able to relish that sweetness, we need to be able to go through that greatness, understand those lessons, and transform our hearts as we go through. Now, what theme? And it talks about all different types of people. You see Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Now, he was a staunch devotee. His wife served him nicely. She had material desires. He satisfied those desires. And then after he satisfied those desires, she realized, wait a minute, I'm going to miss the boat, right? So she requested her son to give her instruction. So for householders, Bhagavatam is for householders. Yes, you may enjoy life, but don't forget what the purpose of life is. Okay, Citraketu Maharaj. Then you have, even as you see the progression as we go, next you'll see Ambarish Maharaj, pure devotee. Now we have Citraketu Maharaj who's going to be transformed. So let's see his transformation. What theme did you devotees see, Did you devotees see in the verses that we just chanted, the translations? Yes, Ramapati.
How to be happy.
Exactly, how to be happy. But wait a minute. Happiness? Is this true happiness? Is this considered true happiness? What is our true happiness?
Being situated at the lotus feet of Krishna.
Right. Not, my kingdom, my this, my that. I mean, it's good. Now, another verse, thought that came into mind as I'm reading this. Before that, in the previous verses, there's this part where he says, let's see, I think it's 14. Where is this? Once upon a time, when the powerful sage named Aṅgirā was traveling all over the universe without engagement, by his sweet will, he came to the palace of King Citraketu. Now, immediately when I heard that word, sweet will, the verse that came to my mind was Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade by Bhakti Lata Bij, right? That the spiritual by the mercy of the spiritual master in Krishna, this living entity who's been traveling throughout the many, many universes, so many lives, gets this seed of bhakti. So it's by the sweet will of a pure devotee. Nityananda, was there any reason why the devotees, the people of Navadvip who were even the worst of the hoodlums got pure devotional service? Was there a reason? No, it was by his own sweet will. So Aṅgirā Muni also by his own sweet will came there. Now, first of all, he's talking about happiness. So Aṅgirā Muni has come. Citraketu Maharaj understands that he's an elevated soul, that he understands the external, internal reasons. He understands why. He knows in other words, he knows what the goal of life is. Yet Citraketu Maharaj, instead of asking him, give me pure devotional service, or, how can I get rid of this hankering? He's thinking, I need a son. Now, we need to understand the mentality of Citraketu Maharaj at that time. Now, he is a pious person, and he's pious. How do we know he's pious? Because he's thinking about oblations for his forefathers. So, the Purusharthas are what? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, right? So you perform your dharma, Artha, you earn, dharmically, righteously, dharma, artha, kama, you enjoy, and then eventually you get moksha. But we are not concerned with these four purusharthas, right? We got pancha purushartha, which is pure love for Krishna. But he's not asking for that, because his mind is in such a way that he is only at this level in his progress. Now, Aṅgirā Muni could have said to him, no, this is not the whole goal of life. This is what the goal of life is. But he didn't do that. Why didn't he do that? Why didn't he tell him, I can solve your problem? Yes.
His level of consciousness was, he could handle that much.
Exactly. He could handle that much. So the spiritual master understands the mentality of the devotee. So as I said, look at the progression in the Srimad Bhagavatam as we get to this point. Because we've seen Devahuti, okay, who wanted to enjoy and then became purified. We see, who else did I have in here? King Bharat, okay. He was a pure devotee, but what was his mistake? Attachment to the real association. He didn't have the correct association, right? He didn't have the correct association. Of course, you have Ajamila, right? And then, which reminds me, when you think about Ajamila, Bhakti Charu Maharaj explains how, as things go, at whatever you're putting into your consciousness, whatever you see, you hear, you speak, you taste, that is creating your subtle body right there and there. Okay, so as they say, the software is being updated. Software is being complete. So the software is all that's inside, right? All stuff that we're thinking about, all that. All that software is being continuously updated as we input all these different kinds of impressions. So that's the point I wanted to think about. We have also Prachina Barhi and Puranjana, the Puranjana story, right? Attachment to his wife, and he was born, and his wife is born as a woman his next birth. So all these different things are lessons for us to be careful of what you are doing in this material world. Please prepare yourself. So that's what the Bhagavatam is doing. Then we come to Citraketu Maharaj, pious person, and he's following dharmically, responsibly. And so Aṅgirā Muni says to him, okay, I will give you, this is what you can, the son, this is what the happiness is, because he's at that level right now. Now, the other thing that you notice in these verses is how he asks him about all of his family members, all of his, how's your family members, how is your life going, are they listening to you, how is your treasury, how is this, how is that. And he said, and Prabhupada writes in the purport here that friends, when we ask friends how they're doing, we want to know, how are things going, how is everything happening, and it's a part of etiquette. Now, how does that pertain to us as devotees? Are we, when we speak to people, does this not tell us how we should approach people? Should we come down heavy and say, hey man, you're in Maya? Somebody comes to you and tells you, I've got so many problems, I've got some financial problems. Oh man, just chant Hare Krishna, you're just in Maya. Is that what this message is telling us to do? No, what is it telling us to do?
Be a friend.
Right. Be a friend. Meet them at the level at what they're at. Because once you become their friend, then they're liable to more easily listen to you, number one. And just by your association, everybody else is probably telling them, oh man, yeah, that's so bad. Oh, that's so tough. Yeah, your life sucks, And you're saying, oh yeah, I know it's difficult. Yeah. And you're just calmly, chanting Hare Krishna. And then he sees because obviously everybody has problems. We all have problems. Just because we're a devotee doesn't mean we're not going to have problems. We have problems. But we have this promise, right? Srimad Bhagavatam gives this promise. Don't worry, I'll take care of you. And it was really interesting because I always used to think, Sikshastakam, I don't, at the last verse when it says, whether you treat me harshly or never appear before me, you'll still be my Lord. And I was thinking, gosh, that's so harsh, And Radhanath Swami Maharaj has given a class, a while ago, and he was saying how just because Krishna's going to protect you doesn't mean you're not going to die, okay? Doesn't mean you're not going to go through things, because you are going to go through things. That's a part of life. You have to withstand, and you have to go through those things. But Krishna promises that whatever you have gained in your spiritual life up to this point, that's never lost. So isn't that the ultimate good for us? Isn't that the ultimate benefit? That the body is going to die, And Citraketu Maharaj is, as we see, he becomes very, very happy when he gets his son. And happiness. So, all this time, Srila Prabhupada's quoting, this will make you happy, this will make you happy, this will make you happy. But did it ultimately make him happy? No. So, Harsha Shoka, right. So, the thing is that, this happiness is temporary. You may get it, but we know, like the waves of the ocean, it goes up and down. And you're going to be on the high now, but it's going to be on the low pretty soon. But if we understand that Krishna is always there, is always going to guide us and protect us, that gives us confidence, and that gives a little bit of fearlessness. When his, like I said, he understood that the Aṅgirā Muni knew everything. Aṅgirā Muni, he didn't chastise him, didn't criticize him, gave him what he needed, and understanding that he will eventually come back. See, Aṅgirā Muni understands past and present, right? He said he knew what was going on internally and externally, he said. So Aṅgirā Muni knows that at some time, there'll be a proper time. We as devotees also, when we approach people, we need to be very aware that we treat people with respect, treat people with friendliness, and treat them as somebody who is important, somebody who is worth it. I think nowadays a lot of times we understand that relationships are the most important thing, not only in devotee lives, but also in the material world. And relationships are the only way in which we can make an impression on people in such a way that they decide that hey, maybe this is something I want to do. He's got something special. He really cares about me. And that's when they are open up themselves to listen to us if we are to give them some special gem of Krishna consciousness. I just realized today, Dravida Prabhu told me it's Panihati today, so I'll speak a little bit about that. But if anybody has any questions or comments or anything, please let me know.
Yeah. If I could just say, thank you for very enlightening comments. Looking at the overall history, because this is like a flashback. I mean, we're finding out who Vitrasra was before, you know.
Right.
So here you have the situation where materially, I mean, except for that one flaw of not having a son, he's got everything going. He's such a good king. The whole kingdom is prospering. All the relationships are there. Everything that's mentioned in these purport. He's got it all there. But as in everything material, the threat is, and here it's realized, that one thing can go wrong and spoil the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, because you're depending on some situation for your body and your line to be in. But the body is just a fragile machine. You know, when I sprained my ankle, seriously, this was actually a year and a half ago now. Time is flying. I couldn't walk. I couldn't come to the temple even at first, you know. Then coming, I had crutches and this and that, and I was massaging my feet. And, you know, it's like, you know, of course, because I was practicing Krishna consciousness, that was always perfect, and it was a great solace, and eventually it healed up, you know. But just the normal things that you can't do anymore. So everything material depends on a whole panoply of things going just right. And then you can say, oh, now I'm happy. But then at least time is going to pass and it's going to change, right? Yeah. So we have this situation. It's a great contrast. You look at the whole pastime, because we learned about who Citraketu was going to be first in Vitrasra. And, you know, nobody's thinking, gee, I'd like to be Vitrasra, you know. I mean, he's fighting with Indra, and Indra's got this thunderbolt that can kill him, and Vitrasra is in his body, but he's not really a demon. Ultimately, he's Citraketu. So he goes through this whole thing where he has to really encourage Indra to kill him, so he can get rid of this demon body and attain real happiness, right? So it's just the opposite with Citraketu. Citraketu's got it all together. He's running this wonderful kingdom. You know, everyone is loving him. The rain is coming at the right time, and just to rout him out, everything, you know, is described there. But it's a material thing, and because that's one thing that he doesn't have, he's miserable, you know. Yeah. So he's going to learn, you know, after this whole thing takes place, and of course Aṅgirā comes back. Does Narad Muni come back with him?
Yes,
and brings the child back to life. Yeah. And of course it reminds us of that pastime with Srivas Thakur and his son.
Yes, and his son passed away.
But then he's getting enlightened from his son and from the whole experience, and he renounces. And then he's blissful even in the material world as a devotee. He's flying here and there, but he's renounced. But then one thing happens: he gets cursed, and then he goes through this whole. But ultimately, it shows you the supremacy and the reality of spiritual happiness. Yes. that is real. And even though there's so many things going on with Vitrasra Citraketu, his goal this time is the ultimate happiness, yes. And again, he achieves that ultimately. Yes. You know, so it's as you say, it's a great lesson. But I wanted to make one comment on your calling attention to all the lessons. Of course, that's a very nice way of looking at the Bhagavatam. But I often think that a lot of the pastimes, they're kind of just sort of devices or ways in which we eventually get the conversation that has the philosophical content that's the real lesson of it. You know, just like in the first canto, you know, you have this scene that you learn later about how Parikshit is sitting there, you know, because he was a great king, but he was cursed. But then right in the second chapter, you get the verses beginning with 2:6, 1-6, ending with 21 or 22, which is a complete lesson.
Right.
You know, and I've often thought, Vyasadeva and you know, who wrote it, and Shukadeva spoke it, they're thinking, these Kali Yuga guys, they'll never get through 18,000 verses. So we're going to give them a whole lesson in the very second chapter. And if they just get through that, we quote those verses a lot, and we made a book out of it. You know, the Dharma, the way of transcendence, is based on all that. Then they can be benefited and they go back to guided with that. You know, Krishna.
Yes.
So the Bhagavatam has many lessons like that, concise lessons, like the 9 Yogendras. They come on the stage, they each have their little lesson, you know, which is incredible. So many times the pastimes are kind of ways in which it sets up for preaching.
Yes.
You know, Maharaj Prithu, then the Kumaras come and they give their lesson, which is invaluable, you know. So there's also that aspect to the Bhagavatam.
Yes, thank you, yeah. And one more aspect I wanted to share because of what you said is that the stories, because the Bhagavatam is for everybody. I mean, you don't have to understand philosophy because, and I think back now, my dad would tell us these stories every day. We would, on our way to the temple on Sundays, he would always tell a story. Well, I didn't know at the time that these were stories from the Bhagavatam. I just thought they were stories. So when children are exposed to these stories as children, you know, as child, and then they read them, they're interested. First of all, you've planted a seed, you know, you've created an interest, and then at some point when they get older and they get a hold of a Bhagavatam, and they're like, whoa, this is actually, you know, this is what this is about. It's such a beautiful way of reaching everybody. And the thing is, you don't really have to even believe them. You know what I mean? You don't have to, even if you take the Bhagavatam, just as, you know, like the Panchatantra stories, right? The stories to teach niti, teach ethics and stuff. Just taking that as that. And not even, the beauty of it is the transformation is happening unknowingly, right? Automatically it's happening. Children don't know it. People who are listening don't know it. But the transformation is happening automatically just by listening to the stories. That's the beauty and the power of Bhagavatam. So, thank you. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you for the nice class. My question is, how can one kind of like remain sober after hearing so many like pastimes and like seeing that the material nature is actually like always changing, and how does like one kind of stay, level-headed and not kind of disturbed by this constant thing changing? Yeah.
So how can people stay steady when constantly things are changing? I would say 2 things. 1 is association, and 2 is chanting. Association is very important, and a part of that association doesn't mean just hanging around with devotees. What's really important, if you see from the Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamrita, the first one, right? Dadati pratigruhnati guhyam akyuti pruchati bhungte bhojete chaiva sadvidam priti lachanam. Thank you, Dravida Prabhu. So having association with somebody who you can share your difficulties with. I mean, I think one of the most important things that we as devotees need is a support system. Meaning, if you have a problem, there's got to be a go-to guy. There's got to be somebody who can say, Prabhu, I'm really having problems with this. You know, or, you know, I need somebody to just, you know, this is what my mind's saying, or I'm getting distracted. How can you help me out? And this is very, very, very important in spiritual life. And of course, the power of chanting. I mean, chanting, I cannot stress enough the importance of chanting, because it just naturally, it's the natural immunization. Okay, the natural immunization. Those 2 things, that's what I would say. Can't do it on your own.
Is there like I don't know if you, I think Tyler mentioned it one. There's like a devotee care program happening around like ISKCON or something where people actually reach out to devotees and
yes,
like,
yes, there is.
So they don't just go like to like, you know, karmis like.
No, there isn't. In fact, you know, the Karuna Care system, which is what I am a part of too, which is that ISKCON Karuna Care. Look it up, and you basically call and say you need somebody to talk to, and you just talk to them. And the beauty of it is because they're devotees, you don't have to explain everything. You know, You know, you can't go to a guy and say, yeah, I want to eat this hamburger, you know, but I can't. The guy's thinking, what do you mean you can't eat a hamburger? Go eat a hamburger. You're talking to somebody who's not a devotee. But if you tell a devotee, this is, you know, my tongue is the most uncontrollable, he can understand, you know. And it's just, and a lot of times, it's not even advice we need, it's just somebody to listen. That's the most important thing, is listening. Sravanam, right? Sravanam. Okay? Thank you, Prabhu. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Oh, yes. Hare Krishna, Dhanavai.
It's a very nice, wonderful class. I really like the way you explain that you have to come to the level everybody has a problem, and especially for Grihastha, we go through, everybody goes through, whether it's Grihastha, Brahmachari, or Sannyasi, but Grihastha, we have to really balance and try to come to the level of other family members, and we cannot say that you're in Maya, and then our sadhana also get disturbed if other family members are disturbed. So this balancing is also coming to the level, and is very important. And thank you so much. And Vidya Prabhu said that so many lessons we learn from, it's a small stories, but for people like who don't know anything about Bhagavatam, they also get, by listening to these stories, they get the benefit and they get the awareness. They don't have to be smart or be vidwan in order to understand Bhagavatam at the beginning, because of these small stories of life. And for Grihastha, it's very, very important. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Dhanavai.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for a wonderful class, your nice philosophical points. You made a point about hearing the Bhagavatam, even for those who don't have much of a context, that just hearing the stories is enough to edify and elevate the consciousness. And I think that's a wonderful point, and I agree with it, but I want to amplify it a bit. In our case, the association that you have when you hear Bhagavatam also matters.
Yes.
And in our case, because the author is a pure devotee, empowered, by associating with Srila Prabhupada, by reading the books, we're getting that inconceivably beneficial addition to just reading the Bhagavatam. It's the Bhaktivedanta purports, which Srila Prabhupada said are his emotional ecstasies. Those of us who have read Bhagavatam 30, 40, 50 times through, when we go back to reading it, you can find almost to a devotee. What we look forward to most isn't just the stories and pastimes, it's associating with Srila Prabhupada. He's in the books. By reading them, you feel his presence, and that really permeates. You know, the stories are there, and they're wonderful, and there's a point to them, and there's benedictions for listening and hearing them. But reading those with the association of his divine grace is the most purifying, amazing aspect of his books. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Yes, wonderfully put. Excellent point. Yes, Srila Prabhupada's divine ecstasies. That is where the essence is. Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice comment.
Aren't you sharing more today?
Just Panihati, if you have a question, we ask out. Panihati, I'll do quick.
Okay. I really like the way you approached class today. You did a lot of preparation, and you began asking us to find themes. So it was like, the way I was listening to class today was a little bit different, you know, so I appreciate that. It was nice. So I was trying to find a theme in the text we were reading, and then I was okay, it's leading to, the realization I had kind of leads to the thing I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about. But we know that he's a really good king, and he's ruling very responsibly, and everybody's very pleased with him, and yet he still has this desire. But I was thinking, this is actually a good desire, you know, because he wants it for the right reason. Like, some people have these desires, but they want it to enjoy, or they want it for fame, or things like that. And so at the very last purport, it says that he responsibly desired to beget a child.
Yes.
Because he's a king, and he has duty, and he has a duty to his forefathers. And he's been trying to get this son. So he's trying to do his duty. and it's not happening. And so that's why he's lamenting. And Ramapati very nicely said that they have to meet you where you're at. And I was thinking, like, he's a king. He can't just run away and go do bhakti in a cave right now. He has to be a king. He has a duty to responsibly be a king. He also has a responsibility to his forefathers. That's where he's at right now.
Yes.
So then I was looking at how the king is interdependent with his subjects and his advisors, and then they were talking about the same in the family structure. So that was kind of the theme that I was seeing, was that even the ruling person, takes instructions from his followers, and then he's also interdependent on them just as much as he is on them. And I thought that was a really awesome message there, that the people in power and the people they're ruling, or the seniors and the juniors, they're all relying on each other. There's times when they need to instruct each other and they need to listen, or there's times where they need to get instruction and those persons need to listen. So I thought that was really cool how they set that up, and they're saying that actually makes you happy, is that interdependence on each other.
Like relationships, right? Yes. So to your point about that's his responsibility, yes. So you should do your responsibility. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have the example of King Aṅgirā Ṛṣi. He was a good king, but what did he do? He did everything for Krishna, right? So the point there is, he could have told him, give him a son and say, do devotional service. But see, again, the main point there is that he wasn't ready to hear that. So, the hope is that if you have met the basic need, then they will be ripe. I think is in the Bhagavatam, the example of the ripe mango and the unripe mango. Was it Chaitanya Bhagavat? I can't remember. I was reading it recently, and I think maybe it was in Chaitanya Bhagavat that talks about how everybody's a mango, but some are ripe and some are not ripe. So in that sense, he was not ready for that. But at least if he's being pious and those things are being satisfied, then okay. Then in the next birth, maybe he'll get a step up. Okay. Or if he's already at that stage, like King Aṅgirā Ṛṣi, you do everything, all of your duties. I'm not going to run away and leave my family as my family may be devotees, may not be devotees, but my responsibility still is to them, right? So I practice so somebody who would practice their devotion privately to themselves or whatever, and then still continue doing their duties. I don't know if that answers your question. Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Krishna. You mentioned about meeting people where they're at, and you always see that in book distribution. And, I don't go straight off by saying, I make friends with them. How are you doing? How's your mind? And believe it or not, like you said, people do open up, they reveal their minds, and then people get emotional sometimes. Like, whoa, I just asked you, 2 questions, and they're already crying, and so it's important, like you said, to make friendships with them first.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, now with all of COVID and this and that and the other thing, there's so many people that are really suffering psychologically, young kids, everybody. So we really need to be very compassionate. True compassion means giving them Krishna consciousness in a loving way. Jai Hare Krishna. Oh yes, Panihati. So this festival, it was taking place in Panihati, which is a place in Mayapur, and it's interesting because this is my Guru Maharaj's signature festival, that he does this wherever he goes. So I felt very blessed that today I'm giving class and it's that day, and it's Guru Maharaj's festival kind of. So Raghunath Goswami, who is one of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's the Shad Goswami, 6 Goswamis. He was born in a very, very rich family, extremely rich, like a millionaire now and that time. So he was extremely rich, the only son of a very, very rich mercantile family, Vaishya family, or Jamindars, yeah. And so, but he was at a very young age, he was attracted to spiritual life, and of course Mahaprabhu, and he would always run away from home. Literally, he would run away from home. His mother got him married, hoping he would stay. He's married now, his responsibility. No, he ran away from home. One time Nityananda Prabhu came to Panihati, and he saw Nityananda Prabhu, Raghunath Das Goswami saw him from far away. And because he was a humble soul, he didn't want to, from far away, he prayed Dandavat Pranams. his obeisances. Nityananda Prabhu saw him and told him to come and said, "What are you trying to do, hide from me or something?" He said, "Because of this, I'm going to punish you." So this is also called the Danda Mahotsava, the festival of punishment. Because the punishment for him was that he had to feed all the devotees this chipped rice, special dahi, chura dahi, yogurt, and what is it? Flattened rice. You know, it's that flattened. It's a flat. Yeah, it's the flat rice. They call it chipra, but it's the flat rice that we see, right? Poha. That mixed with yogurt and banana and sweets, and he had to feed everybody. And they, at that time, went around, and from all the different villages, people would bring all different kinds of sweets, and they would make these wonderful pots, and they would distribute them to everybody. And it explains in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that they would be like in the water, standing in the water, standing on the bank, standing everywhere. I mean, it was completely jam-packed, you know, eating this special sweet, this special preparation that they made. So, and it's interesting because right now in Atlanta, which is in Dallas, they're doing that festival right now. My Guru Maharaj is right there. And it was, so I'm just so excited about that festival today. So. Yes.
And only Lord Chaitanya.
Yes.
So he's with going around, and he's taking a little from each pot, and he's giving it to Lord Chaitanya. And no one, what's he doing? He's, you know, because they can't see Lord Chaitanya, but he's feeding Lord Chaitanya. Because whenever Nityananda would dance, then Lord Chaitanya would be there. So that's a very important part of it.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much, David Prabhu. Yes. So very nice festival. Very happy. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
That's the only question I have.
I'm sorry, Prabhu?
Why just once a month? She has a once a month class.
Oh,
Get a whole month.
we'll see. We'll see what the powers that be say. Thank you, Prabhu.
Wonderful class. Thank you, Mataji.